Hello, hello, hello. Good morning and welcome. We're going to build some castles today. I have lined up a bunch of games about building some sort of castle. All fantasy themed in some way or another. We've been on a fantasy kick lately. I know lots of games are fantasy themed anyway, but I've been like blocking out 2 months worth of fantasy games, and then we're going to do a month with no fantasy games in it whatsoever, or at least not like kind of high fantasy type stuff. We're going to be checking out something called Little Tree Kingdom over here. Is it a little kingdom in a tree, or is it a kingdom in a little tree? Who knows? Is it a tree kingdom for littles? Who knows? We've got Into the Depths. Depths. Quite a difficult word to say with my particular variety of speech impediment. Depths. I just don't have enough lip for that P-T-H sound. Choose your cards. We're doing sort of hex grid buildy stuff. Both of these quite excited for. Little Tree Kingdom looks quite cute. This is more immediately appealing to me. I like this kind of mix of sort of colorfulness and darkness. I will give each of these a little bit more of a look when we get there. And then Scraptory. Really, really good good evocative titles this time. So here we're doing a factory building game with a kind of castle that you walk around. So we're doing Factorio stuff with this kind of strange sort of steampunk setting. It looks like we've got some placeholder in the trailer. I'm seeing like just enemies that are big black blocks, but that's fine. It just can be quite jarring when like a game looks quite far along in terms of other stuff and then still has kind of placeholder in certain places, but you know, game like this is complex to build. I find this looks really intriguing. I don't think we're going to get a good sense of it in about 40 minutes, but let's jump into that one first. Just see who's in the chat and say hi, see what's going on. Whittle. Yeah. But Alex said change double your profit by changing little to whittle. But it's a slippery slope, isn't it? Because first you change it to little whittle, and then you have to change the T's to D's to soften them, and you end up with whittle, which sounds like it could be to do with urinating. I'd be tempted to go with Lil, L-I-L apostrophe, you know, like the various rappers. But then people might think the game is going to be about rappers, and actually, let's go and see what it is about. It's about gnomes. It's not about rappers. See, it says build a gnome kingdom. He's not Lil Wayne. That's not Lil Kim. Although, that's actually kind of a hairstyle that Lil Kim might have had at some point. I mean, I'm quite stoked to see different things that people are doing with cards. Because we're doing something with a card-based interface here. And I think if you're very kind of... if you've been drinking the Reddit and most of game dev YouTube Kool-Aid about game design, it's very easy to see all game design movements in terms of trends and, oh, this is popular right now, so people are copying it, right? That's the kind of LinkedIn dev brain way of thinking about game design. So it's very easy to see all of these games that are very card driven now and think it's about a trend. And I guess you can characterize it that way if you want to. But what cards actually do is just narrow down the decision points in a game to something very, very easy to understand. And what it means is you can kind of create a world where there is just like 4 things in your hand that represent your decisions at any given moment. And yeah, there's like you know, whatever's behind here in terms of the world you're building is like the context in which you use these decisions, which is just a really nice, elegant way of designing a game, full stop. And we saw this on the community stream yesterday with the there was a deck builder which was like a puzzle platformer where you could pause and play the main character. Go and check it out. It's called Avoid the Void, if that sounds interesting to you. It was kind of like Lemmings. The character moved through the level. You had to build the level and use certain cards to trigger what the character could do as well to get them through the level. It was really, really hard. But that's another good example. And I'm really, really excited to see all these things that people are doing with cards. Because it's kind of endless, just like there are endless like physical card games as well, because cards are just a really kind of flexible medium with which to do game mechanics. So I might be making a little bit of a straw man by kind of saying that there's going to be people that are like, oh, I'm sick of everything being a deck builder, I'm sick of everything being cards. But it's a bit bigger than it just being like people are making them because they're popular. You know, people are making them because cards are a medium we've been using to play games with for hundreds of years, and they work and they achieve a bunch of different things. The benefit of having a deck of cards in your game is that people understand how a deck of cards works, and it's a way of taking a a data structure that you would have in a game, a list or an array, and physicalizing it in a way that players can understand it. And that means that you can have that naturally lends itself to players understanding that as they draw more cards from the deck and the deck becomes smaller, they're more likely to get a card they know is in there that they haven't got yet. That's just a thing that people inherently understand from playing other card games. It also helps people to understand that there can be duplicates of the same thing in that list or array because they've played card games and they understand how they work. So this is all kind of good stuff that you get from making a game out of cards. Okay, I'm just going to see if we haven't got any notes on Scraptory. The Steam page is out of date. I'm redesigning the UI and working on taking out the last of the placeholder art. Basic game mechanics are mostly done, but there are still rough edges, and I've done very little balancing. Much of the NPC interactions with towns and different factions are not implemented yet after all. Okay. Yeah, just like a list of stuff that isn't ready yet, which is fine. They said, I think Kenshi might be the closest game to Scraptory, but it is still very different. I'm unsure what to market Scraptory as. I'm excited to hear your and your audience's thoughts and feedback. Scraptory requires a mouse and keyboard. Excellent. Okay, let's see what this is. Joe, why you have a live stream for yesterday? There was a stream yesterday, but I didn't get it set up before time, so we only went. Let me just check it's actually on there. It should be on there. I'll have a quick look now before we get stuck into Scraptory. YouTube's not loading. Yeah, there was a stream yesterday. If there's another stream that hasn't happened that is showing in that slot, I just need to go in and move some times around. I did a lot of scheduling yesterday, and oh, I think are we doing an Unreal Engine game? My camera is really dying. I'm going to switch to the full view so that we don't have loads of camera. All as detected. Ready for hazard. Okay. Because this language is giving like traditional sci-fi, as is this typography, and I think there's a little bit of a clash here, but this is cool. Oh, here we go. My lord, your castle has awoken. It says, what we seek is growing near. Hurry, and this could be our chance. So maybe we're just like deliberately mixing those registers so that it feels kind of science fantasy type thing. Okay, I can skip that. WASD to pan. Mouse wheel to zoom. Any better now? Turn everything down. Yeah, when you're making like very high-end 3D games, please set the default settings to the medium ones, because it wasn't too bad here, but some people, you'll just kind of have things load up on the highest, and I know you want to impress people, but the group of people that you want to impress will be happy to turn the settings up when they get into the game, whereas the people who need the settings on low will not even be able to open the menu to change the settings. Rotate using Q and E. Press the focus button to center it on the castle. Okay. Back up. Move. Okay. We walking. Big slow boy. Move your castle. A higher vantage point might be useful. Switch back, see if we can switch back so that the dev can see the chat. We've got some fiery stuff raining down from the sky. Yeah, I don't know if this is a very convincing way to start a game. In terms of... Is it telling me to go onto that hill? Is that what that is? Is that why there's that arrow there? Because I feel like we should be encouraging the player to pick where they go. Is that arrow telling me to go exactly there? It took a second to pack up. The factory's quite slow. I just started walking around because I could. And then I realized that there's an arrow here, so maybe I should move here. It seems like a bad sort of call to not give us a little bit of choice over where we go. Is it telling me to go up there? Can I go up there? Yeah, it feels a bit doomed either way, that setup, because you either ask the player to move right next to where they are, which isn't very exciting, or they go really far and they see how slow the factory is, which is probably fine later on in the game, but probably not so good for onboarding. It's great the way it walks, though. Those fun little IK legs. Little windmill on the top. Look at that. Left click the nearby resources to learn what they are and their size. Is that a mech that's fallen out of the sky or a spaceship or something? Can I eat them? Yeah, there's lots of you need to go exactly where the arrow is telling you right now type stuff, which is a little bit, it feels a little bit unnecessary. Oh, that's some ore. That's some oil. And the arrow doesn't distinguish between somewhere you need to walk to and somewhere you need to click on to get the information up about it. Yeah, I agree, Fleur, but we do need some trees to squish. I imagine it would be quite resource intensive. You almost would need the trees to not exist as individual objects. You would need it to be like some sort of map of like almost like how hair tends to be simulated on characters. You would need that sort of system to make breakable trees that don't like make the game run really slowly. Hover your mouse over the deploy button to view the castle's control range. Okay, so we want to be in the middle of all these resources. Right, this is a bit better because it's just sort of naturally leading us to need to be here for a good setup, right? So we want to be there. Warning, you will crush everything beneath you. Danger, enemies may appear. Let's send down. Okay, now we've got some stuff we can build. Extractor, steel plant, pipe junction. Okay, we're building pipes from things. We can rotate the buildings. You can see there's a little... I think maybe we need like an outline shader on these things as well. The color coding for the building and the direction, the outflow direction is good, but I think maybe like some sort of outline shader on this because it's kind of hard to make out what it is over the rock texture. Okay, point the blue arrows towards your castle. During the tutorial, you can demolish buildings for a 100% refund. Turn ore and water into steel. So this is ore and this is oil. So we want to build a steel plant that goes into the factory that has a inflow from the oil from the ore field, I guess, and also from the water. How do I do the pipes though? Build 3 extractors. Okay. Oh, we need an extractor for water as well. Okay. That's keeping things nice and simple. I like the fact that we don't have to learn what type of extractor works for each material. There's just a generic extractor. You put it on any material. Because I've been working with someone recently that's making a Factorio like, and one of the things that I dislike about these games to get into is just when you've got all of these buildings and you don't know what they do, and they have all of these like kind of nerdy industrial names, and it's kind of like, yeah, if there's an extractor that just extracts everything, that takes some cognitive load away from learning the game. Right, most buildings require a connection to your castle. Left click on a building, then drag the mouse to your castle. Okay, that's... Ah, cool. That's nice. That's... I really like the visual design of a lot of this. It's great. There's just a really cool... it's kind of reminding me more of a Final Fantasy game than Howl's Moving Castle. You know, you've got this kind of sci-fi stuff, you've got the fantasy stuff. It's got a really nice mix of like science fantasy gubbins. that one won't reach, and I'm not sure why. I think it's just too close. Just put my extractor for this one further away. Steel plant. I already did a steel plant. Oh. Okay, we've got one of those tutorials that sort of lets you go off the rails but doesn't, which is a little bit annoying. Build 2 steel plants near your castle. Yeah, if I'm not supposed to build the steel plant before that point in the tutorial, just don't let me. If it's really that important. See the black growths around the impact site? The scrapfall is infested with horrors from the sky. Interesting. Are those horrors? Are you horrors from the sky? They will attack us if we cut into the scrapfall. I recommend... Oh, no, these are the horrors from the sky. Okay. I recommend you build 2 turrets between your castle and the scrapfall before doing anything else. I think if this is supposed to be kind of threatening, it would be good if it looked a little bit alive. You know, we want some, like, Miyazaki black ooze particles around these bad boys. It's not letting me connect my ore extractor. Why is that? Maybe I need to build a pipe junction. Maybe it's just a height difference thing. There we go. Right, everything's going into the castle now. That's satisfying. I don't think there's a sound when you build these. They need to make like a little sound when you connect up these pipes. Because I think the feeling of basically if you imagine what was going on there in terms of friction, I was trying to find a way to get the pipes to line up, and I was moving around the junctions and stuff. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that's like a little puzzle of the game of like learning how far they'll go and what angle they'll go at and stuff. But that does mean that when you finally get it, it needs to be satisfying. So I would focus on that interaction as one of the things you need to make feel really kind of satisfying and toy-like. So make sure that when the cables connect, you know, when they appear, they don't just like magically appear. They like fade in, and then, or maybe they fade in and do some sort of other effect, and they have like a satisfying pop sound when they go into place, because that is an interaction you're doing over and over again in this game, and it's one that can come at the end of a little moment of friction. So you can make it much more satisfying for the player to work through that friction of finding how to do the cabling by making it kind of click in a really satisfying way. Just have a look at what the chat says. Lots of kind of art ideas in the chat. And yeah, I think one of the things I would say generally about this sort of game is that, I mean, go and look at Frostpunk. It's great to have like a really detailed game in terms of like being able to zoom in and see all these details on this building and stuff. But I would say that's not as important as the overall image. So there's people in the chat saying, you know, where are the trees? Where are the footsteps left by the factory? Where's the kind of fog and stuff like that? And I think those things that make it feel more like a world are probably more important than sort of like the fidelity of individual objects and the textures and stuff like that. And because we're sort of leaning into... I really like I really like what I've seen of the fiction of this world so far. You know, we're building a factory. We are harvesting scrap that falls from the sky that's going to have monsters or aliens or demons on it, which is cool as well. But that's sort of pushing in this Final Fantasy direction, and that makes me want to see a big green world, which I can't. You know, currently this is so barren. And I think it will be very hard to introduce forests in a way that is optimized, but I mean, that's just part of the tech stack of building a game like this, is working out not just, you know, slapping some trees in, but working out how to do them in a way that will run on a kind of lower specification device. And one of the ways of doing that might be to treat forests as like clumps. Like if you were modeling snow in a 3D game, you would have all of these different overlapping blocks of snow, and then when the player moves through them, you can destroy them, right? That's probably not the easiest way of doing it, but that would be like the most basic beginner way of doing that thing that I would think of. So if you wanted to have forests in this world, look at the original Final Fantasy map, and maybe they're not individual trees. Maybe they're like big blocks that almost look like moss from this distance. And that way you can have these destructible areas of trees that you can walk through. Maybe, I mean, it could also be a deliberate design decision because we don't want to confuse the player into thinking that trees are resources or something like that. But also, we don't have it listed on our resource list down here either to have wood. So it does feel very, very barren. And I think making the world a little bit more green and fantastical plays into your sort of Final Fantasy vibes that are going on here, or your kind of strange spacefaring steampunk thing, which is a very kind of science fantasy thing, but it's very specifically an anime science fantasy thing. And then this more barren world feels a little bit more like a kind of trad sci-fi thing. And yeah, I think it just feels very, very empty. Okay, we are nearly ready to build some turrets, so let's do that. We go on our little defense button down here. I've turned the graphics down as much as we can. I'll turn them down even lower. What's 3D resolution? What does that mean? I don't know why that close button is in the bottom left. I think sometimes people make choices like that because they get bored of clicking on it when they're developing their own game, and they don't think, oh, actually this should be in the most intuitive place, which is just where it always is. Build 2 turrets between your castle and the scrapfall before doing anything else. Okay, we're going to make a... laser. Freaking laser. Laser there. And a snipey. Right back here. Oh, we've got 2 lasers. I'm going to upgrade them. I'm going to upgrade them straight away, just because I can. Now click the arm button to arm or disarm your castle's defenses. The gun will track your mouse while aimed. Hold right click to fire. Okay, that's arm. Oh, the castle's got its own laser. That's quite satisfying. Freaking laser. You are ready, my lord. Deploy at least one of your vassals. Their castles can mine resources, boost buildings, and much more. Ah! It's a vassal. Doesn't have a thing yet. Left click on them to select them, right click to move them. Lots of the kind of UX design of the controls here is exactly what I would expect, which is good. You know, left click to select, right click to issue orders, all of that kind of stuff. It's just very established RTS stuff, and there's just often no point in deviating from what people are used to, and that means that if you're making a game where you click to select units and right click to command them, then you're in the kind of historical wake of traditional RTS games and MOBAs and all of those things, and there's just no point sort of trying to fight uphill by making your interactions any different from those. Vassal's name, can we change it? Move at least one of them near the scrapful, then connect them to your castle. Okay, cool. So we're going to put this guy here, and then we're going to... You're not going to work. We need to make another pipe junction. Ah, so there's these little holes on here that are where the junctions go into, and you have to match them up. Ah, okay, so this is where it starts to get a bit puzzly. So I'm going to need to go and disable that one. No, not disable it. Enable it and disconnect it. And then feed that water pipe into there. Feed that into there. I really like the cabling system here. I don't play many of these games. I don't know if this cabling system is... I don't know if this cabling system is from another game, if it's been used elsewhere, but I really, really like it. It's a different take on how these games usually work. Because you do have to sort of think about and use the physicality of these cables, but they're also not as permanent as conveyor belts. So you have to kind of look at where you're... So what it looks like here is this bit is broken and you can't use these because they're all wonky. Whereas this is limiting how many... limiting how many things you can plug in. So maybe you have to upgrade or fix the castle and then you can do this side. If that's what that's meant to communicate, I would make these look like they're filled in. Because at the moment they still look like usable ports. Here we go. We've got some... So do the cables work while moving? Let's find out. So this guy has a cable. Does it break? It doesn't break as soon as you start moving. So if I move him over here, this might be a really kind of good thing for the dev to try and get right, because someone just very rightly in the chat said it's weird to have the... Yeah, Maui said it's kind of weird to have the central gimmick be that the castles are on legs, but then you can't move them because they're attached to stuff. So it looks like we can, but the way I would set this up personally is... Right, imagine this sequence. I click to move this vassal, and he goes too far, and he goes out of range of the cable. The vassal then automatically stops, and the cable starts flashing red. At that point, I can reselect the vassal and deliberately break the cable and send it out further. And if the vassal is moved again and I choose to move him further than the range of the cable, then it will destroy the cable and disconnect and do some kind of satisfying thing with it. But it will kind of have this warning stage where the vassal will stop moving and the cable will kind of indicate that it's kind of in danger of being disconnected. I think that might be a good way to approach that sort of thing. I'm not totally sure, but it's a cool system. And yeah, it's good that you can move a little bit until the cable... I think basically the cables here are the source of this game. And that means that you need to make them a little bit more toy-like and a little bit more responsive. And that means when you're connecting them together, they should have like a really kind of nice little snappy feel. And maybe like a little animation where they kind of come in and they for like half a second, they sort of flop around and then they go into place. You know, like imagine like a sort of... They're like a sine wave and it's all floppy for like a brief second and then the ends snap onto where they're supposed to go and you get like a really nice snap and like an electrical psh at the end of each one. that's where I would put a lot of effort into this game, because it's the thing that the player is doing the most often, right? And you can get that wrong. You can like make something too slow, because like, for example, in a combat game, you're trying to make the attack feel really interesting, so you put massive animation in. We have, you know, the discussion we had yesterday about how fast should a attack animation be, but core mechanics, like core verbs that the player is doing all of the time, that the main thing you do in the game, are a good place to spend a lot of time like making it feel and look really good. And I think the snapping of those cables in is a good candidate for that. Oh, this is not connected to the castle anymore. And the breaking of the cables when you move a vassal out of range, all of those things are like very good cases for spending a little bit of more time and polish on, because they're the kind of things that you really want the player to sort of feel and learn, because all of that game feel stuff as well isn't just about making it cool, it's also about reinforcing the learning. And you know, I can't remember what game we were playing recently. I think it was called like Trials of Liberation. It was like a little puzzle dungeon game, and I was talking about how you should sort of juice the failure states in your game, because that is how you emotionally teach players to play your game. Because often you'll tutorialize your game, players will understand the game, but the things that they're meant to do or not meant to do are not emotionally communicating to them that the things they're doing are good or bad. So even though they intellectually understand how the game works, it's like, you know, you get hurt in the game, there's no red flash, there's nothing to indicate the character is getting hurt. And traditionally in video games, when the player does something wrong, we give them feedback that actually sort of, it doesn't hurt the player, but it very kind of clearly communicates emotionally that they're supposed to not enjoy what just happened, right? So the cable breaking when your vehicle goes out of range is an example of that. And like the inverse, you know, focus your dev energies on the game feel of the things in the game that are like good things that you're supposed to get right and bad things that you're supposed to avoid, because that will help to emotionally teach the player the stuff that they do already know on an intellectual level, but it's not necessarily kind of satisfying or painful enough for them to actually seek to do it or avoid it. That's really where things like kind of VFX and sound design and everything really kind of overlap with the interaction design part of game design. And in a big studio, they would all be done by different people. But as small developers, you've got to think about all of these things in a joined-up way. You don't have the benefit of outsourcing it to a different department and saying, "That's your job. Make this thing look cool." Yeah, and in terms of I think the way that this works is we sort of conquer an area with the castle, we deplete it, and then we move somewhere else, which I think is fine. And also, I think if we can do stuff like... let me just try something. So, if I take my vassal, and I connect them to that... So we could, in theory, have a situation, and maybe this doesn't exist yet in the game, but it would be a good thing to design for in terms of like level design and like whatever the campaign of this is. If you can create situations where it's necessary for the player to do this, right? So, and this is kind of how you do level design in a game, is you work out what the core interesting things the player can do are, and then you note them down, and then you try and build levels that necessitate doing that thing. So, for example, using this system, I would say, okay, it kind of sucks that we don't get to move the castle around very much. So let's create an area where once the player is in there, there's stuff like round the corners that they need to build to, and then maybe it's better for them to like the monsters just ate my thing. Maybe it's better for them to like send a vassal round and build all of these interlinking junctions and then connect the vassal and send it round. That's when this game would get really, really interesting to me, is kind of when you kind of subdivide the area to encourage you to use the vassal in that sort of way. And I think this is fine as a starting area, but if we get into the next area, I would really want to see like more reasons to use the vassal and chain together pipes in interesting ways, and then, you know, have to defend the vassal so that the pipes don't get broken and stuff like that. There's lots of cool stuff here. I think your areas for focus to make this really good are the moment-to-moment game feel of certain things, making the world feel a little bit more lush and alive, even if it means scaling down on the quality of some other things, and then doing level design stuff that means that the player has to use elements of this system in an interesting way. Oh, I need to deselect this guy so I can use my frickin' laser. There's also not much going on here to show that this guy is working. Has he got a pipe going down? There's a pipe. So make sure this has some sort of animation to communicate the state where so it's doing this at the moment. Like this scrapfall stuff is this worker being on here draining this. And we need some clear way of communicating that the worker is doing its job. So even just like vibrating it up and down will sort of suggest that it's working. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but you remember that your game has like, you know, whether you use state machines in a programming sense or not, your game has, things in your game have states, and some of those states need to be communicated to the player. And sometimes you can do that in a very, very simple way by just, like, you know, one example would be, you know, something has an idle animation, and in a particular state you speed that idle animation up so it looks like the character is bouncing up and down more quickly or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, it's just a tell to kind of subconsciously let the player know what's going on. I think also smushing these guys when you destroy them is going to be more satisfying than leaving the bodies behind. I think a lot of the choices in the kind of visual stuff in this game are based on trying to make things look realistic rather than make them satisfying to interact with. So you're kind of leaving the corpses there because they've been shot with a laser, which makes sense in terms of the fiction, but over-egging it and making them explode in black particles when they die is going to be way more satisfying. They're shooting us with these things now. But yeah, we're going to move on to the next game now. I really, really like this. There's lots and lots of stuff to like there. I really like the monster design. The cool thing about using those kind of Miyazaki-type shadow monster alien things is it kind of means you can probably get away with that being the threat for the whole game. It's kind of like a, you know, a minimalist Zerg. It has the same kind of appeal as the Zerg from StarCraft, of just being this like all-devouring alien force. So you don't need loads and loads of variety in terms of the types of enemies that come in. They do need to be a bit more satisfying to kill. Loads of little moment-to-moment interactions that could be better. I mean, I didn't even really get into the interface, but I do think, you know, have icons for all oil, water, oil, and steel, all of these things. Have some little icons. It's going to really elevate the thing. I really, really would like to see what happens once you're out of that first area, once you've depleted that first area. You know, how do you go about making the future areas of the game more interesting to engage with, or to introduce challenges where, like, the spatial way that the area is laid out means that you have to build in a different way, right? Because that's gonna make a big difference. And because you have these kind of curly-whirly pipes, I would like to see areas where there are really big height differences. You know, like you build your castle up high to defend it, but then the ore is like down a couple of layers of cliffs. So you have to build the pipes in such a way that there's like, you know, multiple stages of putting connectors in different places to get it all to loop round. All of that kind of stuff. I think that the way that the enemies attack might make some of that hard to pull off, because if you have like a big cliff with loads of layers and like loads of pipes going down, then those little worm enemies aren't going to be able to navigate that to attack your stuff. So there's loads of stuff to think about there. I think this is really, really promising. I love the theme. I think you can kind of juice the fantasy end of the science fantasy a little bit to make a... Because you kind of want this to feel like a world that's worth settling and defending, right? I get that you're kind of... This sort of barren look kind of evokes industrialness in a particular way, and that's fine, I guess. But you kind of make, if you're making a game that is about extraction and like conquering a place and taking it over so that you can live there kind of thing, you kind of maybe want to make this place look a little bit more desirable as a location, because you're defending it and stuff like that as well. So I do think the kind of, I'm going to get a picture of it up, PS1 Final Fantasy VII world map. If you want to do this in a way that doesn't kill people's computers, I can't actually find one that has a forest in. So I swear, I may be misremembering, but I swear that on the original Final Fantasy maps, when there was a forest, it was just like a big blob, like a big moss coming out of the ground. But I cannot find an example of what I'm thinking of, so I might be misremembering it. But there are ways of representing a forest at that scale that don't have to be drawing loads and loads of different trees. And there are like technical methods of doing that as well. So you do it using a sort of, they're not individual objects. They're like a map of sprites, right? And you do it with like a black and white map like you would with a normal map, but the black and white states of that are like tree is standing versus tree is chopped down. And then when it changes state, you put some particles on so that it looks like a tree is exploding, and then the player can walk their castle through the forests and they will feel like they're a forest exploding without you having to like have the technical overhead of, you know, drawing 1,000 trees on a screen, which dealing with that kind of stuff is like a whole person's job in studios. I used to go to a game devs meetup in London. I went a couple of times and I met someone that was a technical artist on, I think it was one of the Battlefield, yeah, it was one of the Star Wars Battlefield games, and he said that he'd had weeks at work where his entire job as a technical artist was just to like go around the level and put the camera in different places and point the camera in different directions and try and make sure that there were never too many trees on screen at the same time. And that was his whole job for a couple of weeks. So I can understand why you might not want to put loads of trees in this, but it does really feel like it's pushing in that Miyazaki direction and having a kind of more beautiful green world that we might want to protect is gonna do a lot for this game. There's loads of other little things I could say about the UI and stuff, but I think those are the main things that we need to talk about there. So this is Little Tree Kingdom, not Tiny Tree Kingdom, sorry. This is a card-driven kingdom builder. Sorry that the visual keeps cutting out. I'm just trying to get the audio level right. Amid the chaos, a gnome was swept away by the flood. In a distance, a tree stump stands against the current. He found hope. Within the hollow trunk of the tree, soaked and shivering, he found shelter. And there in the darkness he rested. And he vowed revenge. A soft whisper woke him up to a warm sunlight. The storm had passed. Before him sat a mysterious glowing miracle. It called to him. In that moment he felt it, a chance to reunite. And so he made a vow to rebuild the sanctuary he once knew and reclaim the blessings of the goddess. And every night, the miracle whispered to him. It told him to kill. I don't think we're doing that kind of game. Okay, greetings, Maya. This is so cute. Look how lovely that screen is. It's very Animal Crossing. You are about to take a step into the playtest version of Little Tree Kingdom. This game is still growing, and you may encounter flaws or elements of the game. Let me just see if the devs sent any notes over with this. Oh, they sent a performer. Thanks for considering joining our playtest. This is an early demo version of our game, and we're planning to add more content. We'd really appreciate if you could share your thoughts with us through our feedback form, or by chatting directly with us on our Discord server. It's a bit of a weird flex when you've literally spent 5 minutes filling out a form for a specific kind of YouTube channel. I'm not going to fill out a form as part of a stream. So I'm just switching to multi-stream because I haven't been able to see Twitch. Sorry, back in a second. There we go. Okay. Start.
Hello? Anyone still alive? Please answer me. Oh my goddess, is that a gnome? Are you all right, little one? I'm so lucky we found each other. What did you find here, little one? Is that the angel scroll? It looks like it can show us how to build a kingdom. That's it, we can train to build a kingdom and bring the little ones back. Okay, cool. Well, let's do that. It says that the foundation of a kingdom comes from a strong tree. Try to grow these organs. Grow root. Can place tree decoration on top of it. This is the grow card where you can grow your tree. Each card has its usage that shows how many times it can be used. I don't know if this has been made by like someone where English is not their first language and then translated, but it's not very well written. So when you are presenting people with tutorial information, if they have to like mentally try and work out what you're trying to say, then you're kind of introducing friction. So each card has its usage that shows how many times it. Just say, if you're highlighting the 3, just say, this card can be used 3 times before it is banished from the deck. Right? There's just too much there. You can simplify that down. We're showing a number 3, and then we're telling people what that 3 means. We don't need to say each card has its use, or tell generally what this means. We can just tell what it means in this specific instance. Right? This card has 3 uses before it will be banished from your deck. Okay? And maybe not even banished from your deck. Removed from your deck. Whatever. Just like, if banished is a keyword, fine. But if you're using keywords in a card game, they should be like color-coded or italicized or something to let you know it is a important word for you to understand for the rest of the game. But the point here is that just make it tighter and more specific. Click here to progress to the next day. I mean, if we don't get to physically put the things on there, I'm gonna feel a little bit put out, I think. Look at that. We've been blessed with tiles under the ground. This is perfect for our next lesson. Let's see this card. I don't see any tiles. Yeah, no skills, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Just, what does the player need to know right this moment, not, like, generally. 1 welfares for each absorbed tile. 1 welfares. Okay, welfare is... I guess it's the smiley face? We don't have tooltips up here, so I can't see what the resources are. But each absorbed tiles near it. This is an extractor building. This building can absorb tiles underground and give you welfare. Okay? There it is. So I don't see any tiles. And the word tiles has been used multiple times. And there's no tiles. I mean, I guess that these are tiles. They're squares. They don't immediately look like squares. Okay. We can extract the tiles and gain its benefit. Mini house. Give you a resource called population. Give it a try. I will. I'll put up there. Okay, I get to choose where some stuff goes. We're starting to... This is starting to feel better. Look, more gnomes are coming. We can fill our kingdom with populations. Please have people translate your game that speak the language, because fill our kingdom with populations doesn't make sense, or doesn't mean what you think it means. Did you notice the kingdom points climb so fast we're halfway through already? I mean, people will find the mistranslation charming, I guess, and that works okay in a game like this that is very soft and cutesy. For it to be mistranslated, I think it's not the worst thing in the world, but as a general point, like, just be careful with that stuff. Seriously, one night of rest and we already have trouble knocking on our door. Does look like trouble. Oh look, it's trouble. I didn't understand what that was supposed to mean or do. Let's build the kingdom. You have 20 days. Okay. Okay, so we get characters with starting decks. Look at Johanna. She's so cute. You've got Johanna. You've got some kind of barbarian gnome. And some kind of wizard gnome. Johanna is a plant scientist who can help plants grow healthier and more fertile. Now as mayor, she helps maintain stable plant growth for the well-being of the kingdom. How lovely of her. These need to enlarge when we hover over them. They're very small. I'm looking at this on a very big screen. The writing is very small. They need to, like, zoom up when you mouse over them so you can actually look at what they are, because I can't, you know, this is tiny. Play as Johanna. Yeah, Marcin, don't get me started on people that make card games without playing card games. Can only be placed on stem. Okay, let's put some leaves there. Herbal shop. Pollination. 1 random welfare to each pollinated flower in range. Add 3 random tiles. So these brown ones are for underground, the green ones for the tree. It's very cute. And some of the spells just have like a radius thing of like you can place them wherever. There's lots of times like this where there's these resources here. They don't have tooltips when I hover over them. They're very small, and even if I can see the resource somewhere else, I can't like hover over it to find out what it means there. So I don't know what any of these options mean. The thing that it really baffles me about this type of game, this type of project, not this type of game. I've seen this so many times now. It really baffles me. So there are some tooltips in this game, but they're not at the places where I need them. So I have a festival, I choose one of these things. I don't know what any of these choices mean, because I don't know what these icons mean yet. And that's not because I need a tutorial. It's because you do not have the tooltips in the places where I actually need them in the game. And the thing that baffles me particularly when I see a game like this, and I've seen multiple like this, those of you who watch regularly, remember the train game from a few weeks ago that was like a board game about basically furries in this fantasy world with these trains made of gems and stuff. It had the same problem where the game is very, very beautiful, and like the interface here looks like it's been done by a professional specialist who makes game interfaces. And the thing that baffles me so much is if there is someone on your team who is capable of doing all of that stuff to that degree, why don't they understand what it's for? Right? Because all of this is like, when I see an interface that's as like beautifully designed as this, I think, okay, either this is made by one developer that really understands how to draw UI, or they've got a specialist in to make the UI for them. And I mean, it shows visually, but how can someone be this good at designing the visual style of an interface in a game and not understand that I need to know what these symbols mean on this screen? It's like when you... I just don't understand how those things go together, that you can make such a like confident, appealing interface but not really understand the informatics side of what the interface needs to do for the player. It's really, really baffling to me that you could get that high, get a skill level that's that high at making it look good and not understand what the function of it is. Again, this text is so small right now on my big screen. If I was playing this on a laptop, I wouldn't be able to read this text at all. How do you get this good at making an interface look so lovely and not really understand that people need to read things in it, or people need contextual tooltips for all of these resources and stuff? So we've got some defensive stuff like thorns, so our thing is going to get attacked at some points. Just going to get loads of houses for now, because I seem to not have anything to build on. Yeah, Chris, you're right. They are different things, but this is part of what happens to you when you do these things in bigger companies, is you don't... Huh. I like this. I like that we get this choice of like how to grow out the root branches. That's cool. That's neat. Feel like I'm missing some sound effects on some of these things as well. That needs like a kind of stretchy kind of sound when you do it. There's always this danger, and I've said this before, like when you get a game like this where it looks really beautiful and it looks like final art, it's going to raise people's expectations of other parts of the game. And I think if you've designed a game to look really visually beautiful so that it will attract people on Steam screenshots and stuff, and then they get into it and there are like some really fundamental not good interaction things in the game, they're going to feel like they've been conned. And I think if you're honest with yourself and you've made like a really visually beautiful game where the interaction doesn't really work and there's like sounds missing and stuff, then I mean, and you've focused on like what does it look like to someone who hasn't played the game yet rather than what is it like to play, then I mean there is an argument to be made that you are trying to deceive people on some level, you know? A new prophecy has come. I can help. I'm really good at making essence. I don't trust anyone that floats down from the sky, starts promising me a bunch of essence. I mean, I'll accept your help. What could possibly go wrong? Just having a strange angel show up. But I'm in a bad mood now. I don't trust people just coming around being like, hey, let me give you some essence. Why are you tired? I'll poke you. That's good. We can poke them. I love these sprites. They've got some kind of Scribblenauts kind of vibes. Put a mini house up here. Yeah, I mean, we need to like develop our art styles, and sometimes you need to polish early, but just try and make sure that you're not leaving behind parts of the game. We've got a whole tutorial, you know, we've got a tutorial in the game. It's major bugbear is just like games that don't have tooltips but do have a tutorial. It's like you need the forever tutorial before you build the one-off tutorial. Hey, you want to buy some essence? Add a random tile. Okay. I like that we get that little highlight there, because that's the only time it actually makes it clear that there are tiles. What's this? You're a Kitsu. You're going to attack us, are you? Well, I don't have anything to defend myself with, so tough. No, I don't want to do that. I want to keep building my tree. I really like the way that this branching mechanic works. It's really neat. Done a very good job of like making it feel sort of... This is obviously on some sort of grid, whether it's a hexagonal or whatever, but it doesn't feel too gridded, which I imagine is like a challenge if you're trying to make something that looks natural and tree-like. Oh, beautiful flower. Is this an earthquake? No. Just stay calm. Yeah, I think the main feedback is just like... we need much bigger text. I mean, let's see if there are options for it. Let's give them a chance. Yeah, no option for it. If I turn the resolution down, that doesn't change anything, does it? No. I mean, it is an issue for the player. The text is just far too small. I mean, it's definitely... it's not the first time, you know. I used to... I didn't... it was a studio... it wasn't a studio I worked at, but one that we co-developed with. And they had a recurrent problem of, like, they were building games with Unity, and they would just test them over and over again on the PC or the Mac they were working on, but they weren't... they were meant for mobile. And, like, the amount of people in the core art and dev team that never played the game on the target device was, like, really, really high, and it was a problem that they just kept coming up against. You also... it's almost like you need to trick yourself into... I have the same thing with the game I'm working on at the moment. It's like, I really like being able to zoom the camera out very far to give context, but we're gonna have to make, like, a small screen mode that locks the zoom, the maximum zoom, because otherwise people will either, like, get that level of zoom when they don't want it, or they'll use it when they shouldn't, and it will, like, make the game harder for them to play. You have to save players from themselves with these things. No cave house. Tree house. Just far too many resources where essence, part of welfare. Happiness, part of welfare. Safety, part of welfare. Prosperity, part of welfare. Okay, so these are all the kind of the ways that the characters feel, I guess, that add up to their welfare. And we have a resource called a Kingdom Heart, which I think, I don't know if we can get away with that, but it's funny, at least. Right, we're going to move on from this. I think this is really cute and charming. I hope it does well, but some of the problems it has are kind of bizarre for something that looks this good. Like something that is this far along that looks like a commercially released game that's already out. Some of the problems this has are just really, really strange for a game of this quality to have. Look at this lovely painting in the background as well. It's so nice. The way that it sort of gradually merges into the interactive stuff, and then the main stuff you build has the little outlines on, and then this is a, like, kind of middle stage between that style and the more painterly style of the background. It's really, really beautifully, like, visually designed, this thing. And I want to play it, and I really like the building of the branches and the roots and that kind of physical aspect of gradually building this out. I'm already getting screwed, though, with my hand, because I'm regularly getting a handful of stuff to put on here that I can't put on here because I don't have enough branches. And that's the sort of thing that we might get into a little bit if the rest of the game was a little bit more intuitive. But all of this issue with like having all of these stuff, all of these things that I don't know what they do and have no way of accessing the information is just kind of killing it for me. So we're going to move on from that and check out today's last game. Which is The Depths, which I'm quite hopeful for. I like the theme of building spooky castles underground. It's kind of giving some Dungeon Keeper vibes. Okay. Welcome, Captain. I'll be your advisor for this expedition, so let me remind you of the basics right away. First, click on the cards, one of the cards from your hand at the bottom of your screen. Then just place it anywhere around your castle. I shall build a house. Great! Each tile gives resources depending on its properties and placement. For example, field gives more food if placed near other fields. Keep an eye on your resources up at the top of the screen. Food is what keeps your expedition alive. If you run out of supplies, you'll be forced to retreat to the surface and start over. Your objective and progress on this floor are shown at the top of the screen. Complete your objectives on this floor and you will be able to delve deeper. Okay, we can WASD, we can Qua, we can mousy wheel. Hello, little castle. Aren't you a lovely hexagonal castle? This feels like one of those games where someone found a fantasy hex tile asset pack and was like, I know what I'm making with this. And I respect that. I mean, you know, maybe they did make these assets, but it just has that feeling. And as a asset pack kit bash evangelist, I respect that. Okay, we're going to build some more stuff. The well discards your hand and gives you food, which we don't need right now. The watch tile captures tiles, so this, I guess this golden border is our capture distance. Like really, really intuitive stuff here. Like I can just immediately see that that's what that means. And we've got the word capture here. I just like, okay, that's kind of intuitive. Shack is going to give us stone and take away food. I guess we probably need to do that. What are these purple tiles? Is it telling us? It says if you... Okay, influence used to capture new tiles. Okay. So if you have enough influence, you can build on the purple stuff that you can't actually build on yet, I think. I think that's the idea. So far, so good. We're straight into playing the game. No loads of pre-explanation or anything. Straight into playing the game. That's what I want. Especially if it's a game with cards. Because cards communicate to me that this is a game about game and not a game about story. I'm happy to play games about story. Some of my favorite games are games about story. But I think when you have a very gamey thing in your game, like cards or dice, or it's just very kind of mechanically abstract, it sort of communicates to people that this is primarily a game and not like an immersive story world. So it kind of, for me, when I get a game like this and it's just straight into playing hands and not loads of explaining through a character or something like that, that to me shows that the developer understands the type of person that plays these games. Production is required for certain buildings to operate. You can also dig up ore deposits, cave walls, and even demolish buildings with the demolish tile card. It'll cost production, but you might get resources in return. Okay. Oh, so we've got these cards that we can always use, I guess. Turn per nearby gold ore. Do we have any nearby gold ore? Here we have some gold ore. But what we really want is to get 2 of these at once. So maybe, can I demolish one of these? Yeah, I can. So I do that and then put that there. Yeah. You've run out of cards. For each turn while your deck is exhausted, food upkeep permanently increases. Refilling your deck costs influence. Click here to refill before it's too late. Okay. So our food is kind of gradually running out, so let's have some more. And fields benefit from being next to other fields. So we'll do that. And houses give us money as well. That gives us something if there's water nearby. Azurite. And they've used the word nearby to just mean adjacent, which is fine. It's just very quick to learn. Alrath, yeah, I kind of understand that. I would make these just like tiles or something. See those blue crystals? That's azurite, a really important resource. We need it for research. If you gather enough azurite, I'll provide you with new cards in exchange. Okay, so the azurite that we get from building these things next to water is what we use to actually do deck building. Fishing boat. Give me that fishing boat. I feel like we need some block occlusion here as well. These are annoying when we do this. There's not really any reason why we should have this kind of thing going on. You know? Look at how games like Baldur's Gate handle this and then work out what the cheap version is. This is like, okay, we ray trace here, right? From the camera to here. And then when we go here, now we're ray tracing through the object. So now what we need to do is we need to let the player... We're not ray tracing through this object, we're ray tracing through this object. So now we need to let the player know that this wall is still here, but we need to let the player see through to this stuff. So there's different ways of doing that. We can make this, like, translucent and leave it there. Or we can do some kind of cool shader so that it sort of half breaks down and goes down to the bottom or something. You could do that with like a pixely thing and it might tie into this pixel art style on the cards and make the whole thing feel a bit more cohesive. But the other thing is, unless there's some way that we can dig these tiles out and get rid of them, then I'm not sure why we can select them as hexagons anyway. Because it just makes interacting with the grid very confusing, right? So if I'm here and I'm looking down and I'm looking at my kingdom and I'm there, I feel like what we should be hovering over is this tile, because these tiles aren't actually relevant to play in any way whatsoever. So we do have the opportunity to destroy it. So that's the contradiction to what I was just saying. So because we can destroy it, great. But maybe there's like a middle stage where, unless we're kind of demolishing stuff, most of the time we want to default to just like seeing through it and seeing what's behind. I don't know. It just feels a little bit... they're so tall as well. There's a lot of times when the camera is kind of... They're getting in the way a little bit. Use influence to capture new tiles for your settlement. Select purchase tile card and hover over tile near your borders to see its price. Okay, so this is purchase tile. I think capture or explore is probably better, because I guess it doesn't matter. It's like abstract. We're just spending a resource to get a thing, so it is a purchase, but you might want to think about a more reusable term for that. Well, that... Where's our last well? Have I built a well yet? I don't think I have. No. Okay, so we're going to put one of these here. And we want to capture more azurite. That gets... So this has got 2 water next to it. So I would think that azurite is going to go up by 4 per turn. So it's at 9 now, so hopefully it's going to go up to 13. No, so that only triggers once for each adjacency, which is maybe, I don't know. It's hard to tell without playing more of the game, but it's one of those things where you want people to be able to look out for that moment where you can adjoin it to 2 pools of water and get a better thing. But hard to know how that would work in terms of balancing, but it seems like a little bit of a shame to not. Have you found it hard to describe what you want through pixelated art in the cards? I do not find the pixelated art in the cards to be a problem. I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but I don't find it to be a problem in this game at all. Okay, that's going to make us more gold. Not sure I need gold right now, but let's do it anyway. And I'm going to demolish this tower because it's redundant because the other thing next to it. We'll put a mine here. And then capture that gold from both sides. And I just need to keep building water mills whenever I get the chance so that we can upgrade quicker. We can get more cards. Okay. Shipyard is going to give us fishing boats, which allow us to capture water for food, which is good. And we can put that anywhere. It doesn't... Oh, if it's next to water, it's going to give us stuff. So let's... Oh, we don't have enough influence. Remember, we basically need influence to reshuffle the deck. And if we run out of it, then we can't keep going. So we're running out of food. Look, they're shaking it around to warn us of this issue. It's good. So we're going to build a fishing boat on some water to get some more food. But it cost food, so I died. Okay, cool. I like it. There's a lot to like here. Let's prepare for our next expedition. You can spend collected gold in the shop to get powerful upgrades and unlock new cards. Okay, so the gold... I can't remember if I had to use it for stuff when I was building or if it's just used here. Gain 20 food per shack. Okay, that's like a little spell ability type thing you get. Shacks provide more production near other shacks. Houses provide gold every turn. Let's go for slums first. And then go back. So you keep the gold. Yeah, I think things generally don't cost gold. So the gems that you collect during a map are used to upgrade your deck within that map, I think. And the gold is used to buy these more permanent progression upgrades throughout the game. Yeah, I agree that there's a slight clash between these two art styles, but it's the sort of thing that if this was my game, I would continue to iterate on that to make it better. But from a game design perspective, this is the best game that we've looked at today in terms of just like the actual stuff that the player is doing feels good. It's easy to understand. It's like all of the parts of the game that are just like from other games are just really obviously tied into how you would expect things to behave and act and stuff. So although there are some things about the way things look, like the camera occlusion thing with these tiles bothers me a little bit. I think we could do... so if I wanted to make these look more coherent, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a Photoshop at the end of this stream and show you what I would do to quickly make these two art styles fit together. I don't find the pixel art cards a problem. I think this is a bit of an eyesore. I'm going to take a screenshot now. Well, let me wait until I've got a couple more cards in my hand. And we'll do that in a minute when I finish playing, because I'm actually enjoying playing this quite a bit compared to... I liked Scraptory. It was a little bit slow. I wanted to quickly get to a point where I could see what the game really was, because those games are kind of slow to learn. Like, I had the same experience recently of playing Factorio, of like, it takes a long time for Factorio to really turn into Factorio, so you have to be very invested in getting through the tutorial to see what the game really is. This just immediately gets you to what the game is. Okay, so let's take a screenshot and put it in GIMP, and then when we've played a few more rounds, I will open that up and show you what I would do with this, because I think there's a way to make this more cohesive that doesn't like replace any of the pixel art and stuff, because I don't think having a clashing art style is necessarily bad if you make it fit in some other way. Let me... The computer's like, no, opening GIMP right now is the final straw. I will not have this. We did a similar thing yesterday. I was talking to someone in the Discord about the kind of use of color in their game, and I thought there were some like easy wins in terms of tweaking things. And I think you can do similar things here, but I'll show you in a minute. Let me just check that I've got everything I need in that screenshot. Yeah, we have. Cool. Okay. What do we need the most? We probably need food the most. The mine can capture these deposits as well. I didn't realize that. Watchtowers give us influence as well, which we need. We need to get influence, because if we run out of it, we lose the game. And our shacks need to be close together because they get a bonus from that upgrade that we bought. We don't want to run out of food because that was how we lost last time. Okay. I'm going to run out of space soon. Let's put a well. What's that? That's a shack. Okay, so we want to leave some space open next to this shack so that we can build another shack. So let's put a well over here. And a field here. Yeah, the music does fit well. It's sort of like hopeful, mysterious. Fits the vibes of what you want for this type of game very well. Right, let's build another watchtower, because getting influence is the slowest thing, it seems. We don't have any water tiles where we can do this yet. We can click to upgrade, so food next to each field or plantation. Let's go for the windmill. Well, over here. Windmill here. And then another field next to it. And then that's going to have all those nice little adjacency bonuses. You get so much design space out of adjacency bonuses on a tile grid. And now we're going to purchase that tile so I can build another shack next to it and make use of our little slum bonus from having shacks together. And then we'll do one more field here and then reshuffle. I don't think these are upgrades of new cards. I think you're literally getting whole new cards. I think. That's my understanding of the mechanics as they've been presented to me. What are these? Unfinished constructions. Okay. Have we got any tiles we haven't built on yet? Over here, another shack. It does mean we're... Oh, hang on. Demolishing costs... Okay, so I should be using demolish more often to get rid of these tiles that are inside the kingdom, because I already have that area covered by my influence. And this uses a resource that I don't really use for much else at the moment, so I should just be knocking some of this stuff down. And that means I can put another windmill over here and double dip on this big field in terms of bonuses. Wells shouldn't be built next to other wells. So we've got a mine over here to get this research resource. We're running at... Our food is going down very, very quickly, so let's focus on food resources for a little bit. See, if you compare what's happening when I play this game to the previous game, I can think out loud about this because the game is so simple and intuitive that I just know what to do, right? The last game just wasn't giving me access to information, and because the game was like relatively more innovative than this, it meant that it needed to... There were parts of it that needed to be more intuitive, like the tooltips and just like... We had a lot of different cards in the last game that did different things that I couldn't understand because I didn't have access to what the icons meant. What you'll notice here, and I was saying this yesterday about deck builders, we have a lot more of repetition of the same cards, which makes the game easier to learn as well. One of the benefits of having a deck of cards. If you're like... The thing that's funny about Little Tree Kingdom is it presenting itself as cozy and accessible, but you start off with a deck of cards where every card is different. And from like an accessibility point of view, that's not a good way to start that game. What I would have done, if I was building Little Tree Kingdom, is I would start the player off with like 6 cards that just build branches, and a couple of cards that put things on branches. And then give the player a few turns of doing that before you introduce more cards. And that's the easiest way to make a card-based game accessible. And it's also just... one of the reasons for using cards in the first place. And if you ignore that, you're kind of getting in your own way as a designer, and you're trying to overcomplicate things. And the problem is, with a game like this, or like Little Tree Kingdom, your early adopters are going to be sickos that don't need it to be accessible. And this happens with most games. Like, the people that want to playtest your game are going to be more tolerant of it being inaccessible because they're willing to get past that. But there's a reason why deck builders are structured the way they are, and why they start you off with a deck full of copies of the same thing, and it's so that the complexity can grow throughout a play session, and that's helpful both for teaching new players and for players that are repeat players, because they don't always start off with an overwhelming variety of stuff in their deck. And it just, again, this feels like one of those things where if you actually play those games, you would understand that intuitively, because you would have seen the pattern in other games and thought about it and gone, why do other games do this? Why do other games start you with 6 of the same card? And the answer is reasonably obvious if you just spend a little bit of time thinking about it and like questioning it as a player even. Don't have to be a developer to work that out. We're going to run out of food. See you later, Alec. Got victory. That felt a bit sudden. Not totally sure why that happened. So, please note, Dev, it needs to be more obvious when you're approaching victory, otherwise it can feel really underwhelming to win something. Take a look at this. This is the map of the depths. We've passed through the first cavern, but it goes much deeper. That's completed. Maybe we need to like color this in or something when it's been completed. Bit more of an obvious state change, because these are ones that we haven't done. We hover over them, it says start. We hover over this one, it says completed. But if I come off the map, the only thing to indicate that I've done this one is that the fact that the line up to here is filled in. Let's just make that a little bit more obvious. It could just be a darker ink, so it looks like this is stuff that has been actually like filled in with a pen, and this is potential stuff or something. Exploration and mining. Let's find out what mining is. 1 second. I've got someone at the door. We made it to the humid caves. It's so green and blooming compared to the barren caves we've seen before. Okay. It is so green and blooming. Look how green and blooming it is. I think I need to just cut all of the talk about deck builders from the last couple of streams and put it in a video that is like, hey, please don't make a card-based game until you've watched this. Because I'm getting really tired of seeing the same thing, same issue over and over again. Oh. I forgot that the fields eventually disappear. That makes sense. I was like, I had one disappear before, and I was like, where did my field go? Not pizza, unfortunately. Political canvasser. I'm actually waiting for a new desk. I've got a... There's a space here that I'm putting a new desk in, and it's because the desk I'm actually sat at is so full of stuff that if I want to make a note in my notebook, it's currently on top of a MIDI keyboard down here because there's just not enough space. So I am expanding my desk today. Desk building, a roguelike desk builder. Right, now we are armed with the knowledge that we can demolish tiles. You note as well, they've only given us 3 cards at a time, and that's because we have to play all 3 to draw. Now, if it was forcing us to play 5 cards every turn to be able to draw new cards, it would be a nightmare. So there's a lot of thought that's gone into this game, and it just really shows to me. Hand can hold 1 additional card. I think that might be a bad idea. Expansionism. All influence income is increased, but Azurite income is reduced. Castle provides more resources. Okay, let's go for that. So we're going to get Azurite slower, but influence faster. That's a tree. I'm going to destroy it. Actually, I want to capture this and then put a mine here, because there's 3 tiles around there for gaining stuff from. Let's expand our little windmill. Another nice thing here is that there are some cards that care about adjacency and where you place them and what's next to them. But it's not every single card, so you don't end up getting like totally overwhelmed by the spatial puzzle of the game, which is good. It could get very, very taxing on the brain if every single thing needed to be optimized for what was next to it. We have a bit of that, but it's not everything. Reshuffle another field here. And have I started building any shacks anywhere yet? I don't think I have. Let's start building some shacks out in this direction. Oh! Some rocks fell on my field and crushed it. It's not very nice. Oh! Evil. I failed. You ran out of food. Okay. So that example of that moment, it feels like it wouldn't necessarily hurt to have a dialogue pop up that says, placing this will use up the last of your food, or something like that. I'm not sure in having like the dev has already done due diligence by making like the food icon shake and stuff when you're nearly out, so they're already thinking in that direction. I'm not sure if having that as a kind of skill that you need to practice in order to not accidentally end the game for yourself is really in line with what someone gets out of this type of game. I think it's fine to sort of finish a turn and the food drains and you run out, but like accidentally spending the last of your food by placing something and then the game ends feels quite anticlimactic, and I'm not sure if it's the best way to have a failure state in this game. I really, really like this. It feels like the sort of game I may come back to later and do a longer stream of it. Someone in the chat was talking about like clashing art styles, and I do want to just quickly do a little exercise with that before I end the stream. And this is the sort of thing that I frequently do this in the Discord because I kind of enjoy I enjoy doing this stuff. But what I would do is, if I wanted to try and make these feel more one with each other, because generally speaking they've merged the low poly art stuff with the pixel art stuff in a way that is kind of okay already. I think this bit looks particularly bad, and I think it's because just like, I don't know, there's something that feels too big about this, even though the pixels are the same. Are they enlarged compared to the others? I don't know. There's something about this one that bothers me, and I'm not sure why, but we'll come back to that in a minute. But what I do like is that the pixel art has its own space in the game. So it's not like we have like a pixel art style here and then bits of it in here. It kind of has its own role within the game. But a thing that you could do to make this whole thing feel a bit more coherent is try and mimic at least one of the colors from here in the framing of the cards, because at the moment, like, the whole card is in the suit of you've got these suit colors of this kind of gold for one type of thing, yellow for population type things, red for the watchtowers, and it makes total sense that you've made the whole card that color, but it also makes the color lose its meaning a little bit because it's all over the card. So what we could do is try and shift some of this so that it's kind of more in line with the world space colors of the game or something like that. So, and to be fair, I was thinking about this before I saw the second level where the lighting and stuff had changed. So it might not work entirely because the lighting in the 3D space changes some of those ambient colors. But what I would probably do here is just try and get these cards working so that some of the colors in them are closer to the main colors in the game, and then what that will do is make the important information based colors in this image stick out more. So if we were to colorize this and pick this dingy green and make it lighter, right, so immediately they look like they're in the same world now because it's that same kind of dingy green. And we're not actually going to keep that. You'll see in a minute. We'll cut some stuff back out. So if I were to color that over and then go back through this layer and take out the stuff where we want the information to pop out, you know, we'll cut that out. Right, so it's distinct. And then we'll just do that in a few different places. Right, already the text stands out more because it's not getting lost in all of that bright color. We do the same there. And then we take this banner. We let that be the theme color. We take this banner on the house. We let that be the theme color. And we take this and we let that be the theme color. And maybe we do the same for the picture as well. And I would maybe try and half it so that maybe the house is like the environment around it is the color of the actual environment in the game, and the house is the yellow color because the house is the thing that you're building, and the rest is like little bits of detail. So if you did something like that, then we're starting to get like the color means something now. Right, rather than just like the whole card being the suit color, the color starts to actually mean something. And it stands out more because you've used it more selectively. And then if we zoom out and if I turn off that layer boundary, it looks more cohesive already because we're using the neutral color. The neutral color is shared between the diegetic world and the interface, right? Just immediately looks more cohesive. Even though this is in pixel art and this is in a different art style, it just starts to look more cohesive and coherent. Right, so that's what I would do. Because I don't think it's really a pure problem of... I don't think it's like a pure two different art styles problem. I don't think that's exactly what's going on here. I think it's more about being selective with color and the different levels of how relevant a piece of information is. It's like information hierarchy graphic design stuff. So then if we go through and we say, okay, we're going to make this food icon orange as well. Because one small problem is all of your icons are gray and you're missing, and because of that, you're missing out a way of using color to convey information. So if we make we're going to make the, oh no, hang on, that's on the wrong layer. So if we take this and colorize it, we pick out a color for each of the resources, it's going to be much easier to avoid the lost state, the kind of accidental lost state that I just experienced. We just flatten the whole image. Oh. What did I do? I'm just going to have to do that again. So yeah, if you were to colorize each of the icons so that they convey more information, you know, we've got an orange chicken leg. Oh. It's because I hadn't clicked OK on the colorize. We've got an orange chicken leg. We've got a little bit more of an obvious color coding for some of these other things as well. I'm just going to, just to save some time, I'm just going to cut them out with a square. So it's not going to be perfect, but you get the idea. Treating color as a vector of information rather than decoration. So you can read these much quicker at a glance if they use color, right? You don't want to make the color the only source of information. So if these were all just like different color circles, then it wouldn't work because you need it to have some redundancy for colorblind people. The sort of magical research thing should be blue to align it with this. So we'll make it the same blue as that. I'm not sure I like that blue that much, but if we did that, then it becomes very clear that this is linked to filling this color up, this bar up. Keep the lightness down there.
And then purple for the influence, I guess. Oh, hang on, I've misclicked. Sorry for all my, well, it's just, doing speed gimping is hard. That's what we call it around these parts. Purple or pink for the influence. All right, we have thematic colors for resources, which just makes it easier to understand. We keep the suit colors that you already have for cards. Like it was green for food, blue for the research, the water mills that turn water into research, all of that kind of stuff. You keep all that, but you use a neutral color for the border of the card and for some elements of the illustration so that it just makes it much clearer, like what it is, right? Because it's a lot easier to see these illustrations and understand what you're looking at if there's just a little bit of differentiation. The way I've done it here, you could do it different ways, but the way I've done it here is the thing that the player is actually building that contributes to this color is representing a function, right? So yellow is basically saying this is a thing that produces the yellow resource, right? Or this is a thing that does a particular type of job. And then you make the building that color, and the little bit of decorative environment around it, you keep how it is. And then I do the same thing here. You know, if this is paying influence to capture a tile and its surroundings, I don't know, maybe this is purple because we make this resource purple, and then we make you already have purple in the interface for capturing new tiles based on that. All of that kind of stuff. That's what I would do. And I don't think it's necessarily about getting rid of the pixel art. The other thing is, you know, speaking practically, you have to think about where the project currently is, right? So going with the grain of the project as it is, this is very different from just like pie in the sky, blue sky thinking, like, how would I totally redo this thing? What I'm suggesting here is making small, high-value tweaks to the assets that are already in the game, rather than like redoing everything in a new style. And there may be situations where redoing everything in a new style is the best way to go, but I want to focus on solutions that people are more likely to actually get use of, and that means that, you know, doing suggesting a change that they're more likely to do because it doesn't require like changing everything is kind of more in the wheelhouse of what I'm looking to do here. And maybe we can make this a little bit less. I think this pixel art border just needs to be darker. I think that's all it is. Whether you make it grey or you make it more like this kind of green over here, it doesn't matter. But it just is too bright and it looks kind of obnoxious. So making that a sort of duller color, because the border isn't important, right? So you everything to do with information hierarchy. Information hierarchy sounds like a big scary thing in graphic design when you first hear about it, because it uses long words, but all information hierarchy is understanding what is important in the image and translating that into the composition of the image, right? So that border is not important. It is like a little bit of background decoration. So it doesn't need to be a really high brightness color that is sticking out. It should fade away a little bit, and if you look carefully you can see it's a little ornate frame, and that's great. But there's a reason why, you know, these kind of bits of interface like that frame, like this frame, like the edges of the cards, should usually be a little bit dim and dark, because unless the corners of those things really matter, like you're aiming at them or something, they are not important information. So they are further down in the information hierarchy. They should be further down in the visual hierarchy to sort of denote how important they are. So this is the kind of thing I would do. And then maybe this is like a different shade of blue as it fills up, because this is supposed to be like a satisfying thing to fill up. This is your countdown to your next bit of deck building. But you know, I do this kind of exercise when I think a game is really good and there are a couple of little visual tweaks that will make it better. And this is what I would do with this. But yeah, that's kind of the approach I would take.
put the color back into the icons because it helps convey information and it makes these quicker to read. Like, it's just much quicker to look at that and see what's going on with these. I mean, I would also maybe think about doing some color coding with pluses and minuses on these as well, just so it's very clear what's an increase and a decrease. But don't necessarily go for bright green and bright red because people can't see the difference. It might be more like it's white when it's positive and when it's negative it's sort of red or orange or something. I'm not sure, but just have a little bit more of a thought about the color language that you use in this game, because it's really, really good, and the game is really good. The fail state stuff, we talked a little bit about fail states, and even the win state feeling a bit sudden. Like, when I won, I didn't really know what I'd done to win, and that's like taking away from the emotional impact that a player should feel when they win something, right? So in terms of the game design, I feel like there's lots of really good stuff in this game. You do need to think a little bit more about win and fail states, both warning when they're coming up and also making a little bit more of a big deal out of them as a kind of emotional ritual. You know, this isn't a game where you're like playing for 30 seconds and failing and then playing for 30 seconds and failing. Those kind of games, speedrun games like Rewinded we played a few weeks ago, Blood Thief, Super Meat Boy, they need a very fast retry loop. It's okay to fail the game and go straight back into gameplay. Any game where there is quite a considerable amount of build-up and upgrading things and you're playing for quite a while before you lose, I feel like losing should feel like a negative celebration is the term I usually use, right? So when you die in Dark Souls and there's the big text that comes up on the screen and there's that like horrible funeral bell sound effect, that's a negative celebration. And it's like part of the game to experience that, and it's part of what people enjoy. It's an iconic part of that game, is how it sort of quote unquote celebrates failure. I think you need a bit of that here as well. The win and lose states didn't feel like there was much kind of emotional weight to them, but the more important thing is that it's just not obvious when they're going to happen. I think if a player is going to kill themselves by playing a card, you can give them a warning or just not let them do it. And let the player lose the game by the kind of gradual tick down of their resources rather than spending them to play a card, because that feels really... It feels like, you know, you're playing Hearthstone and you deliberately cast a fireball at your own face, but you did it by accident because the game let you do that and as part of a normal action, right? So I would think about that, see what you can do to tweak that. But I really, really like that, and I think I will probably come back to it as a player. Out of all the games we played today, I really like Scraptory. I thought there was something really good there. I feel like Scraptory has more stuff that it needs to work on in order to make it like a really good implementation of the idea. And you know, someone posted a question on one of my videos the other day that was asking about ideas and like, how do you check if something is a good idea? And they were saying like, you know, can I just show people an idea as a pitch and then work out if it appeals to them? And I was saying, well, not really, because like you can have a really bad idea and execute it incredibly well and people will like that. You can have a very good idea and execute it incredibly poorly and people won't like it. So ideas just don't have any value on their own without some degree of execution. With Scraptory, I feel like what we have here is a very good idea. Like the Factorio kind of genre and the idea of a walking castle just work very well together as a basic idea. The implementation is very good already in some parts. The feeling of being in the world and of being in a cool fantasy world that you want to conquer and protect or live inside of in some way isn't quite there because of some of the art choices. And the developer needs to pay more attention to tactility, like the feeling of plugging in and unplugging these big cables from sockets. All of the visual design is really cool. The factory itself is cool. The cables look wicked. But I think thinking more about the game in motion, not just as a series of animations, but specifically the stuff that is responding to what players are doing. Like when they make the connections with the cables, when the cables are going to snap because the characters are walking away from each other, all of that kind of stuff, really, really important. And there's going to be deeper challenges with this game in terms of like how you design the world to make it interesting to gradually take over and build bigger factories with more connections and stuff. But until those kind of core things are worked out with how the, you know, how the basic interactions work, I wouldn't necessarily want to play it for long enough to get to the point where I care about the level design. So that's kind of where we stand with that. I feel like this is an excellent idea, and the implementation is like 60% of the way to being a great game, but there's some stuff there that they're really going to have to work through to make it really, really good. And then Little Tree Kingdom is kind of got the... I would say that the problems with Little Tree Kingdom are like the inverse of Scraptory. You know, Scraptory seems like the person making it understands the genre of game they're making for a start, and what the things that are missing are things that we would usually consider polished, like they're little kind of interaction things and like sound effects and animations. This is the other end of the spectrum. It looks gorgeous, and I think just if you describe this game to like the ideal person for it, which would be someone that likes cute things and wants to build a cute little place, and then you showed them this picture, they'd be like, yeah, I am totally on board. This looks like the game for me. But the problem is that the actual kind of implementation of the card part of the game really feels like it was done by someone that doesn't understand what those games need to do to work. And that's particularly bad when you are aiming for a target audience that is perhaps a little bit more casual, right? It's not necessarily a casual game. There's a lot of information on the screen. And like I said, with a game like, well, with any game that's card driven, you need to start off with fewer cards, because that's just a built-in way to have a lighter tutorial. And I don't think we necessarily needed all of those characters popping up on screen telling us stuff and explaining the story and gradually introducing concepts if we built the deck builder properly, because a deck builder that is done right doesn't need tutorialization, because the tutorialization is the fact that you build your deck gradually and you don't start off with an overwhelming variety of stuff. So that was a really big problem with this game, and I've seen it in lots of games more in this genre generally, but I think it's a particularly bad problem here because this game is trying to go for like a more cutesy casual market, and that means that it just needs to be much more intuitive and not overwhelm you with variety. And it needs to not have all of these icons and text that we can't read, because that's just kind of stopping us from learning the game. So I played this for not as long as the other games, but I didn't really get to a point where I could look at the cards in my hand and then think about what I wanted to do in the game and then quickly play a hand of cards, because they were all just sets of symbols that didn't make any sense. And if we compare that to, you know, what was just happening when I was playing Into the Depths, it took 2 or 3 minutes for me to understand the game and to be able to like actually just strategically play the cards to do the thing I was trying to do, because they were all just simple adjacency bonuses. And even though this had some slight deviations from the normal deck builder format, where, you know, we had to pay to shuffle our deck and all of that kind of stuff, it was very, very quick to learn, because it just got us straight into learning the game, and it understood deck builders. And I think every time I see a deck builder that starts me off with a deck of cards where every card is a different card and every card has like relatively complex rules, I think this person doesn't understand this genre of game, and perhaps doesn't even play them, and or perhaps just hasn't played them analytically enough to understand them to the level you need to understand them in order to make one. So I'm probably going to chop some of this up and make a little like, please watch this before you make a deck builder, because I'm going to keep repeating this stuff every time we play a deck builder. It seems it's more common for me to find a deck builder that doesn't seem to understand them versus a game like this, where even though they've done some mechanics differently, the person that made this understands the card-based part of their game. And it's just very common to see games where that doesn't seem to be the case. Or where they just overcomplicate things far too much. And it's a particular shame in the case of Little Tree Kingdom, because that is a cute game, and in order to really capitalize on being a cute theme, it needs to be much, much more accessible. It's just alienatingly impenetrable in terms of the text size. all of these symbols that don't tell you what they mean when you hover over them, all of that kind of stuff. And like I said, it's just bizarre to see a game where the interface is this beautiful, but it doesn't seem to have been designed with an understanding of how people interact with it rather than just what it's like to look at, you know. So, whew. Thank you everyone for joining today. If you're new to the channel, indiegameclinic.com is where you can submit games for this stream. It happens every Thursday. Next week we have a slight different theme. We are doing our kind of itch.io browser games, how many games can we play in 3 or 4 hours type stream. I do one of these every so often now, just to help clear the backlog. So we'll have a slightly different thing next week. We'll be doing that. And let me just look through the next couple of themes. So we're gonna do that. Then we're gonna do some tactics games the week after next. Some games about making words or typing the week after that, and then some Metroidvania exploration type platformers the week after that. And then I'm going to be doing a big theme change, and I think we will probably, after that, we'll do a month or two where we don't play any more fantasy-themed games, because we played a lot of fantasy-themed games in the last couple of months. And yeah, if you want to submit a game, indiegameclinic.com, the form is on there. The reason I have a form is because this is a channel where we do these kind of design breakdowns. We're looking for what's not perfect about the game. We're kind of picking it apart a little bit. And it's really important when people send me their games that they understand that, because it needs to be based on consent. And I get lots of emails every day where people have, you know, someone's found my email address and added it to some big repository of content creators' email addresses. I get emails every day saying, play our game, it's out on Steam now, blah, blah, blah. And they're just sending that email out to dozens and dozens of different content creators, which I understand that approach. Sometimes you need to do a scattergun because you just don't have enough time to treat people as individuals. But I do not play games that have been submitted that way, mostly because this stream focuses on games that aren't finished yet, because I would like to think that occasionally some of this feedback actually gets back to the developers and they make use of it. But also because I don't want to like play someone's game and rip it to shreds when they didn't know that that was what was going to happen. If you are part of our Patreon community, please do not submit games over here. Don't submit games to Indies Under the Knife if you're a patron. Patrons have their own stream, like the one we did yesterday. I do that every 2 weeks. Everyone who is a patron and is in our Discord can submit their games to that. I don't play every game submitted every time. Sometimes if we have repeat games, I might kind of leave them for a little while. Tend to prioritize the games we haven't seen before on that. But that's one of the perks of supporting this channel on Patreon, is you get in the Patreon supporters stream. So, Sky Ruby, thanks for joining the stream, even if you're not in the right time zone. I will try and start doing some streams that are like more kind of daytime for the American time zones. It's just basically once the channel gets to the point where I don't have to do, where I can afford to not have to do every single thing on my own, that will open up more options for like when we stream, how many streams there are, stuff like that. So at the moment we've got 2 podcasts that come out from Indie Game Clinic. I edit them myself. All of my video essays I edit myself. And until I get to a point where the channel is making enough money for like us to live off and for me to pay someone else to help with editing and stuff like that, then I'm a little bit stuck with how much time there is to use for different things. So the more the channel grows, the more you might see things that are kind of the stuff that requires me to be online streaming. Those things might become more frequent or move around a little bit more. At the moment, it's mainly 2 streams a week, unless I hop on to do some of my own development. I do that occasionally when there's time, when I'm working on something that I think is interesting to look at, like art type stuff. But yeah, that's kind of what happens with channels like this that are fan funded. The more it grows, the more I can involve other people in some of those smaller tasks. And that means that I don't spend entire days, you know, editing video and stuff like that, which I still kind of regularly do as part of running this channel. Nate, do you work the night shift in Japan, or is that just a hypothetical? Thank you, Gnarhead. I am getting ready to dress up as a wizard for the next video. Looking forward to that. That's why they pay me the big bucks. Right. Thank you all. Have a good rest of the day, and I will see you all soon.